I think the first book of the Bible is Genesis, right? And it starts off in the beginning. There was a void, and then you have you have the movie screen with all the credits coming up. Dun, 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 dun. That's not even the soundtrack to Star Wars. I made that up. All right, that's my note, guys. We make sure that Genesis verse 1 to 8, we learned something today, guys. We found out that God made the first day from the evening to the morning, which starts off at 12 a.m. at night and ends at 12 midnight, which is 12 a.m. at night. That's one day, right? And on the second day, he did the same thing, right? He said on the second day, and it's the same text. It says the first day was and the evening and the morning were the first day, right? And in verse 8 he goes, and the evening and the morning were the second day, right? So you go from evening, well, that's when you start off, right? We start off in evening. That's how we start off every day in the AM, right? We go all the way to past the AM to the PM to the PM to the PM to the PM back up to midnight, right? And we fell back upon evening. That's one day. He said that on the first day and on the second day. So if that is the case, and if all of the cultures in the world follow the same 1 day period, which is, you know what I mean? Like, okay, if their 1 day starts off in the morning, right? And it comes back to the morning, you know what I mean? That's still the same context because it falls under the timeline of what God made it, right? Now, if their 1 day is, half a day, which is, okay, well, my 1 day is here in the morning or in the daytime or in the, where the sun's out, and then it came upon, where the sun ends. That's not a full circle, right? So that means that technically, right? But you know what? Okay, so that's not true. Okay, well, okay, my statement there is not true about every culture falls upon the same religion, right? It's only true if Christianity was the first religion. So what is the oldest religion? So that's what to find out. Okay, I'll put no note. This is only true if Christianity was the first religion. Okay, what is the Old Testament in the Bible? The Old Testament is the first part of the Christian Bible and the sacred text of Judaism, containing a collection of religious writings from ancient times. It includes narrative of creation, God's relationship with people of Israel, laws, prophecies, poetry, and wisdom, literature, and is divided into three main sections: the law, which is the Torah, the prophets, Nevi'im, and the writings, Ketuvim. So the themes, right, and significance. What's the importance of the Old Testament? Okay, you have the covenant. The Old Testament chronicles God's covenant to, which is a solemn agreement with the people of Israel. Another key theme and significance: the messianic prophecies. For Christians, it is also significant for its prophets, for its prophecies that they believe point to the coming of Jesus Christ as the Messiah. The key theme there is that all of the uh, people within the book, they're waiting for the coming of their Jesus Christ, which is the Messiah. The Messiah, um, it doesn't say as far as the meaning goes, but in the context of who Jesus Christ was, the Messiah will be their Savior. Ethics and law. The text contains a moral code that includes laws, guidance on social justice, fairness, and ethical behavior. This is where you learn your morality, code of ethics, possible crime and punishment, social justice, fairness, basically how people ought to treat other people based on the words of the book. Genesis chapter 1. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. That's it. That's my first verse. Should I go to the second verse, guys? I said one verse a day, right? Should I dwell on that first verse? So God created the heaven, and He always created the earth. That's it. That's the beginning for us, or that's beginning for Him as well. You know what I mean? Was that the beginning overall? I guess that's a beginning, right? But God has no end, so we'll just assume God has a beginning. He created the heaven and He created the earth. Okay, verse 2. And the earth was without form and void. Oh, see, I told you there was a verse 2 with the void. And darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the water. So the earth was without form. So He went from the heavens to the earth. The earth was without form. There was a darkness and upon the face of the deep, which is probably talking about the ocean. The face of the deep, what? The deep sea? Sounds like a pirate wrote this. The Spirit of God moves upon the face of the water. Alright, so in the beginning, because we don't know what the beginning was, because, apparently God had a beginning. I'm assuming this is the beginning of time, beginning of everything, maybe even the beginning of even Him too, right? God created the heaven up there, and earth right here. That's it. There was no hell. And number two, the earth was without form. So the earth was without form. So there was no flat, there was no round earth. Right? We didn't get to that. Is the earth was flat or round right now? Okay? And void. So it was without form. There was a void. And darkness was upon the face of the deep. There was a darkness upon the face of the deep. So if the earth was without form and void, and darkness was on the face of, so basically, in verse 2, So in verse 1, he created the earth, right? So imagine creating the earth, but it's like a pseudo earth, right? Because it's without form. It's almost like you're just imagining what earth is. You know what I mean? It's like drawing it, but not having it tangible. So it's like a pseudo earth, right? And upon the face of the deep, oh, and earth was without form and void. So it was just a canvas, and it was dark. There was darkness was upon the face of the deep, right? So that void was deep. That void was deep. So the earth was void, but that void was deep. So what did he first do? Right? And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. Wait, so the void, so the earth was dark, and the dark was deep. So now you went to describe the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. So the deep void was actually water. So the first thing God did was create the earth with a void that was dark and deep. I'm learning something already. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And God saw the light, and it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. God divided the light from the darkness. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, which is the void. So darkness was upon the face of the deep, void. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. So the Spirit of God moves upon the face of the deep. And God said, "Let there be light." And God saw the light, and it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. So God divided the earth into two, light and darkness. And He described light as being good. Don't go into the ocean, guys. Sounds scary right now. Tell you, dude, this is like Pirates of the Caribbean, verse 5. And God called the light day, and the darkness He called night. And the evening and the morning were the first day. And the evening and morning was the first day. Man, that's why the calendars be messed up. You call okay, so in the English language, this is what they call one day. One day comprises of a day and a night, right? So you have two words to distinguish three things. That's why the American kids be messed up in math, guys. They be like, that's why none of them engineers all become entertainers. Like it's like 1 plus 1 plus 1 equals 2. Okay. And God said, "Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters." We're gonna have to go through. We're gonna have to go through that. Hold on. And God said, "Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and divide the waters from the waters." Okay, so when he divided the light from the dark, it was still in the deep ocean, right? He did that first, right? And then, and he called the light day and the darkness night. Okay, I mean, I'm not gonna go deep into that one, man, because that just sounds kind of ridiculous on what we know about the world and how we got, how we get day and night, right? Because how is it supposed to work? You know what I mean? Like you split the world into two. It was a big mess. It was just a big water thing, right? You split into two. You got one side of the water, which is one liquid, light, and then the other liquid, dark. Okay, and then you made the firmament, the midst of the waters, right? Okay, we're supposed to assume that's the atmosphere, right? And divide the waters from the waters. Okay, we'll just say, like you have water, which is we just call it the ocean, right? Just put it in the context of the earth right now. And then we have the atmosphere being water molecules mixed with everything else. And then we'll call that um, light or firmament, mist of the waters, right? So they're both firmaments. The, the, the ocean, the actual water, H2O, mixed with salt. And then water, I mean the mist, which is the the oxygen or whatever, right? That's our context of what we have to exist in, right? And it all came from saying water because waters from the waters. Okay, in the verse 7, and God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the water which were above the firmament. And it was so. God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament. So he distinguished the water from under the firmament. So which were above the firmament. So it was all one word firmament, and he distinguished it. He divided it, and then he distinguished it, right? So that's where you have your atmosphere, and then that's where you have your water. Okay, cool. The pirate turned into a scientist. He did that through some sort of chemistry powers. Okay, verse 8. And God called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning were the second day. So he called the firmament heaven. So he divided the water from the water, and then he distinguished the water from the water by making it firmament, and he distinguished the two, right? And then he called the firmament heaven. He divided God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. See, he called both waters before he distinguished it firmament, right? So technically, the ocean is still a firmament. And then, so he called the firmament heaven. So is the water the firmament as well? So even water is heaven? Maybe so. And the evening and the morning were the second day. So on the second day, he created the evening and the morning. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And the evening and the morning were the first day. Oh. Okay, so verse 8 and the evening. So it's like a poem at this point, right? So he's describing time right now. So the first day, from the evening to the morning, were the first day, right? And then on the verse 8, after he called the firmament in heaven, so after he created the earth with with uh with with light and day, night and day, he called it the first day. Then after he divided the waters and made the firmament and called it heaven, then then it went, move forward in time, and then, you know which is from evening to morning again, and he called it the second day. Okay, so that's why you have your morning at 12 o'clock at night, right? 12 a.m. So in the existence of time, even how they we tell time, right? They took it from the Bible. It had to be. You know what I mean? So in the context of the world that we live in the present right now, um, there's significantly follows that we abide by the the Christian history, or you know what I mean, or context, because right. So would you say like the Chinese and the Asian and Cambodians, right? If they're following a time frame, we're not even talking about like the lunar, no, like the calendar, like the year or whatever, right? We're just talking about one day and one night, right? So if they have a standardized time clock, right, which is 24 hours, and you start off at 24 hours as your morning being an evening, and the evening and the morning were the second day, and the evening and the morning were the second day. So you go to the full evening. That's why when you go to the full evening, right, which starts up at night, and you come back around, and it goes back to evening, right, and you call that morning. So if the Chinese culture follow in the 24-hour time frame, right, like their clock, you know what I mean? If their clock is only 24 hours total in their clock, and their AM and the end of their PM is in the evening time, that means that the Chinese is a Christian based society also, right? We could say the same thing about the Muslim. We could say the same thing about the Buddhists. So the establishment, right, whether people have varying religion or not, if they're following the principles of a clock that starts their morning and evening off at nighttime, midnight, then it has to be that they're following the order and universal law of the Bible. See, I don't know that, right? Someone tell me. There we go. Thorough, guys. We're thorough. All right. Anyway, if you guys got to listen to any of that, if you're watching it from the sidelines, we went through a whole Genesis chapter 1, verse 1 to verse 8, and I felt like we got something out of that. You know what I mean? Never really thought about some of this stuff before. So,